We are having a very great evening. Great evening so far. Today is part two of our exercise science professional panel. Today we have Danielle, Stephanie, and Matt. If you'd all like to introduce yourselves and give a little background, that would be great. Danielle, we can start with you first.
Sure. I am Danielle Weinrich. I'm the owner of Intelligent Fitness, which is a personal training facility in North Canton. We primarily specialize in medical fitness. I've been the owner of Intelligent Fitness for 23 years, right out of college. And I went to Akron U. I have a bachelor's in sports medicine, a master's in exercise physiology. I am a Cscs. I'm also certified in the functional movement screen. I have been doing this. I mean, we've been through so much in 23 years. I actually have started 3 separate businesses that all, well, 2 of them are in the fitness industry, 1 is not. We've been through obviously COVID like everybody else, and somebody said there are no off days. I think that was you, Stephanie. And there are no off days right now in any industry, unfortunately. But we've also been through more than just that. So I look forward to all of your questions, and hopefully we can, I can answer them to the best of my ability.
And then Matt or Steph, either one of you can go next. Or we'll do ladies first. Stephanie, you can go next.
Okay. I am Stephanie Davis-Dieringer, and I am currently a professor at the University of Akron. I have actually been teaching. This is I'm only 25. No, I lie. But I've been there for a long time teaching adjunct. Along the way, I earned my bachelor's in wellness education from the university, master's in exercise physiology, adult fitness. I hold over 25 different national fitness certifications, from personal training to group exercise to core wellness training. I have done everything from cardiac rehab. In medical fitness, I transitioned. I was the fitness consult and the opening fitness manager for the Student Rec and Wellness Center at the university. I kind of helped build and shape and open that for 4 years. I transitioned back into doing some medical fitness, working with a variety of patients, from healthy adults to specializing in cancer wellness, kind of a wide variety of backgrounds within the industry in itself. So I'm trying to think what else. That's it. I will help answer the best as I can along the way.
All right, I think I'll get started then. Thanks, Stephanie and Danielle. Unlike our other 2 professionals here, I'm technically not a professional. I'm still a student. So I graduated from UA just last year, 2019. And I currently attend PT school at Youngstown State University. So I'm still in grad school, physical therapy. I guess that makes me a little bit different than the other 2 here. I can speak a little bit more on the PT side of things if anybody is interested in pursuing that career path. But I'm currently in my 2nd year at YSU. I hold a graduate assistantship within the program. So technically I'm not hired within our department, but I'm hired by the Senefani Center of Excellence at YSU. They provide a grant to fund a pro bono clinic, which offers free services to people who are underinsured or don't have health insurance in the Youngstown, Warren area. So we serve a wide range of people, lots of different populations, but my responsibility in the clinic is to conduct some research, as well as schedule and kind of see the day-to-day operations of the PT clinic located within the overall Midlothian Free Health Clinic. What else is there? During my time at UA, I was in exercise science club. I was a supervisor at the rec center, and I liked that a lot. Yeah, I just picked my first clinical site. It's a outpatient clinic in Canfield, so I'm looking forward to the future. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you guys so much. Then next we'll get into our oh, excuse me, my stuff is like staticking. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
We're going to get into the designated questions now, and we're going to I'm going to ask the first few, and then Alexis is going to get off work and ask the rest of them, but we're going to start with Stephanie. And Stephanie, the question is, what process did you have to go through to create the rec? So this could be the layout, the employees. What really was your role in doing that?
Drew, you're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, I think.
Okay,
I can't hear you.
Breaking up. The process in creating the rec. Wait here.
All right, and just like that. So we're gonna go past that real quick. We'll come back to Stephanie, and we'll go to Danielle real quick. So Danielle, what degree level do you believe is adequate enough to own your own fitness business?
Well, the degree level that I feel is adequate enough is at an absolute minimum a bachelor's, and most of my trainers do have a master's. What is adequate by law is different. That is no degree necessary. Personal training has a lot of different aspects to it now, in terms of if you're going to deal with the general population or you're going to deal more with like a medical fitness or a sports or a different type of population. Pretty much though, the problem most people don't understand whenever they go into personal training is there is nobody that is generally healthy anymore. So you have to have not only a degree, you have to earn some type of certifications. I get kids all the time, sorry guys, that come out of college and they think that they know how to train and they've never even done more than what we call pin pull. Just pulling out the pin and putting it down one notch, pulling out the pin and putting it down one more notch. So experience is a big factor as well, as well as soft skills. So degree is great and necessary, but more than that, you also need some of the extra things that are involved in all of that. So we require at least a bachelor's. Long answer to a simple question.
That was great, thank you. Hey, Stephanie, do you want to give this another shot here?
Yes, ask me one more time. What was the question? It was about developing the rec?
Yeah, so what was the process you had to go through when creating the layout of the rec center?
Oh my God, it was surveying 22,000 students to see really what they wanted. And remember, this was 16 years ago. So it was a little different. We couldn't just send out a survey monkey and be like, here we go. It was a lot of asking questions and talking to people, of seeing really what they wanted on campus. Back at that time in 2004, when we opened, we kind of started building in 2002, 2003. Campus rec wasn't necessarily a thing. Campus, it was kind of more of a draw for students to choose a university based on their recreation options. So we were, at one point, Ohio State built up and we came in. At one point, we actually had the second highest rock climbing wall in all of the past, but
See if she reconnects here. Can you hear us, Stephanie?
It was just making a lot of educated decisions. I can hear you now. Is it me, or does it just keep cutting out for everybody, or is it me?
I think you're cutting out. Correct me if
There we
I'm
go.
wrong. There you go.
It was just really making a ton of better. It's good.
Yeah.
Everybody's frozen. Better?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Sorry. It was just making the best educated decisions that we could and trying to be as flexible and forwarding for the future that we could.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So we're going to do one more for Danielle here and then on to Matt. And so, Danielle, what are your thoughts on online fitness? Do you think it is a good route to take with a bachelor's degree in exercise science?
No, I do not. Online fitness is definitely going to have its place, but now because of COVID, we do some virtual training, especially because of our population tending to gear more towards the medical, and they're still a little COVID scared, but in terms of even virtual, like training like we are now on Zoom, you can't see well enough, you can't tell what they're doing, you can't correct well enough. There are so many limitations to it, and you cannot give the type of customized programming that most people actually need. And they can go and, if they just want a random program, they can go and buy a program somewhere. It's not the same. People come to us because of all of the additional things that we can do. So I know that they say that virtual training is like the whole new big thing, but it really won't ever be. It won't ever take the place of the personal connection that you develop with your clientele.
Awesome. That's really, really great to know, especially in the midst of a pandemic where we're forced to, in part. Okay. Matt, how is grad school going, and what is the most challenging thing you have faced while in grad school?
Grad school is going very well. It's very cool to see, concepts that I learned in my undergrad career transfer and carry over directly into this grad program, and how I'm learning, specific PT concepts. Really, my foundation from exercise science was very beneficial, transitioning, especially in terms of prescribing therapeutic exercise. There's not a heavy focus on learning that material currently in my grad program specifically, but having that exercise science background, it's very beneficial. Keeping some moves, some specific things to keep in mind, like positioning, cueing, that kind of stuff is better to have, I think, an exercise science background versus like biology or even psychology. What has been the most difficult thing so far? So I would say in a graduate professional program, it's not so much about, you study for a test or you study for a quiz and you take a test and quiz and you get a grade and then you move on to the next class, right? That's not the goal. The goal is everything that we're learning right now, everything I'm learning right now, we have to apply directly to our careers moving forward. So I think that was the most difficult part for me initially, was seeing that when I study, when I practice these things, it's not just memorization, it's actually, bringing it in, internalizing it, and then being able to use that moving forward. And I can't, it all comes back around, stuff that I learned the first 2 weeks of my program. We continually talk about, anatomy is a big thing, because every single concept, talking about different pathologies, talking about the healing process, it all gets related back to anatomy. So I guess kind of holding on to that knowledge and internalizing it, applying it to things moving forward, that was the most difficult initially. Currently, we're kind of transitioning into the way of thinking of developing our own clinical reasoning and kind of working our own process based on the knowledge that they've given us so far that we've attained. We need to use that knowledge to make a process with each patient moving forward. So that's kind of the next challenge, is developing our own method for clinical reasoning.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Danielle, back to you, and then one for Stephanie after this. So Danielle, what is one vital quality you believe someone needs in order to be successful in the fitness industry?
One vital quality. I would kind of agree along the lines of what Matt was just talking about. Application, being able to take what you've learned, and again, anatomy, physiology, and apply it. To understand not just, where a muscle is, where a bone is, but to be able to understand the concept of biomechanics, you will be so much more valuable, because it's not about an exercise. It's about getting somebody to do what you need them to do, and getting a certain, getting them to do what is necessary for them to move correctly or improve or do whatever is needed. So it's more along the lines of being able to have the emotional intelligence to apply what you're learning right now.
Thank you so much, Danielle. That was a good answer. I liked it. Stephanie, this one's for you, and it is, what made you choose your career, and at what point did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
Oh my God. I actually I started out in nursing. I was all the way through in nursing, and I decided I really didn't want to focus on the after effects of disease or the after effects of illness. There's got to be a better way to do this. I wanted to focus more on the preventative aspect of it instead of kind of that back end of how do I deal with disease? How can I prevent somebody from having to develop disease? Ironically enough, one of my jobs, I carried 3 jobs to pay for college. One of my jobs was teaching group exercise. And never in my life did I ever think that that would transition into my professional career. But it did. I kind of really dove into that passion, and to see people's lives change or get different, and their motivation and their attitudes start to change. And it really kind of fed my passion of, okay, I can really make a difference in somebody's life by what I'm doing. And as soon as I saw like the first 2 or 3 patients kind of shift, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. No matter what aspect, gamut, if they are 5 years old to 95 years old, I wanted to continue that drive to make somebody's life a little bit better than it was the day before. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Matt, we have a few for you now. In your experience, how do you assess certain people with different age groups?
Can you clarify that a little bit? Like, how do I work with different age groups, like in terms of populations?
Yeah, so maybe how would you handle someone that is in a older age group versus someone who's in a younger age group?
Okay. So again, I don't have the same experience as the other professionals. I could just relate to you what we've learned so far in the program. But basically, PT has different specializations. One of them is geriatrics, one of them is pediatrics. Right now, we're in our pediatrics class, and we're learning a lot about tailoring whatever goals we have for their therapy and whatever specific exercises, specific modalities that we have the child doing. It's very important to make them enjoyable and establish behaviors with those children. You know, if you're working with adults, it's not easy, but you can tell them, and you would expect them to be active participants in their therapy and their treatment because they want to get better, right? But the child, they might not be aware of any specific problems they're presenting with, or it's just what they have known up to this point in their life. So it's kind of up to the therapist to make that enjoyable, to get them to adhere to whatever program you're giving them. In terms of older adults, one of our faculty in the program, her name's Kara Karamusa. She's actually our clinical education director, but she loves older people. She loves working with that population. She says that they're not older in years, they're just more rich in experiences. So she tries to instill that perspective into us, saying that they might have more difficulties in mobility and just general function in life, but you can't count them out for whatever program you're trying to give them. You always need to give them the benefit of the doubt and realize that they've been through a lot and they've learned a lot, but it doesn't mean they want to stop living their lives, you know? Just take that in consideration. And there's a lot of other psychosocial factors as well. With any patient, you've got to consider not just what they're presenting to you physically, but their home life, their living situation, mental illness, potentially finances, everything comes together to present that patient in front of you. And age is a big factor. Yeah.
So a little bit of a pivot here from Matt. What was the most difficult thing you found about grad school applications?
Deadlines. So I've gotten so much better in time management, let me tell you. If I could tell you the person that I was about 2 years ago in undergrad versus who I am now, it's night and day. But definitely time management. So it's super easy to sign up for a practicum and get observation hours, and it's super easy to separate that from the essay questions and actually doing the real applications. But the difficult part is integrating all of it together to be like that single application, because there's a lot of different things to keep track of, right? So my advice to anyone, hopefully you've already started prepping for it, I'd imagine, but do things as early as possible. Whatever you can get done earlier, the better. Like first thing I would do is reach out to any faculty or mentors and see if they can write you letters of recommendation, because that's one of the more unpredictable things you have to consider, because they've got other things going on. So it's important to give yourself a lot of time to get these things done, because you don't want to be sitting a week out or a few days out and realizing, oh crap, I still have this to do. And that's not a good situation to be in, because you want to set yourself up for as many schools as you can in order to give yourself a chance.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. This one is for Stephanie. How do you recommend a beginner gets into your field?
I think it's shadowing, it's asking questions, it is really getting to know different people and networking, and really just not being afraid to say no and kind of going that extra mile, volunteering, and talking to your professors, faculty, anybody that can introduce you to somebody to get you where you want to go. Kind of in that transition in the field, many careers have never been gotten based on just submitting a resume. A lot of it has been introduction and who do I know and how can I get my foot in the door that way. So especially in this industry, a lot of it is kind of who you know, especially in the beginning, of what doors can be opened or windows can be cracked to get you different opportunities in the industry.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. This one, we're going to jump back to Danielle. What are some things that you learned after opening Intelligent Fitness? This could be regarding patients, anatomy, business, or anything related.
Oh my gosh. So much. I mean, pretty much everything that I do now. You don't realize how much you don't know until you're kind of in the middle of all of it. you want to get, like, do you want me to be more specific on something business end, fitness end, client end?
Maybe like, what is there anything that sticks out to you as maybe a more important thing that you use on a daily basis that you learned after opening?
That was 23 years ago. Gosh. I guess every day, and I stress this to all my trainers too, is you have to continue learning. If I think of the things that we did 23 years ago compared to how much we know now, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's mind-blowing what we know now from an educational standpoint compared to what we knew then. So whenever my trainers, the younger ones, they come in and they kind of think that they know it, they not even close. You never will know it all. The body is changing at such an enormous rate that we can't keep up. So I think in a year, if I had to probably give a good estimate, I'd probably read about 40 to 50 books, probably about the same amount of research articles, continuing ed conferences. I listen to podcasts on the industry, not fun podcasts, educational podcasts. And that's just what is my free time. So I guess if that would be the biggest thing, is that you'll never know it all, and you just gotta keep on chugging along and learning more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Could you real quick, what podcast do you listen to for people who would like to get into some type of business sphere?
I like Peter Attia, who he's a doctor who most of his research is in longevity. I like Dave Ramsey on his EntreLeadership. Let's see, who are some other, Rick Mayo, who's with Alloy. Those are probably the ones that I'm listening to mostly right now.
Awesome, thank you so much. So Matt, we're gonna jump back to you, more about the grad school process. Here's a two-parter. Can you give us a brief explanation of the grad school application process? And then the second part I'll say after this one. So yeah, just a brief explanation of the grad school application process.
Yeah, so I can't speak about other graduate programs. For example, if you are looking for a master's in exercise physiology, I think the process is going to look a lot different than for someone who's applying to a doctor of physical therapy program. But if you are thinking DPT, then everyone has to go through the PTCAS. It's a national organization. It's a national application. So through that site, it keeps track of all of your materials. So it's kind of like a portal for it's very organized. I will say the PTCAS, like, it helps with time management because it gives you suggestions as you go. But sort of in your junior year, it'll open up for you. And you have about a year to get all the materials done. And then you submit it usually sometime in the fall, potentially earlier during your senior year, depending on what program you want to get into, because they have different dates. But keep it short and sweet. You need letters of recommendation, you need transcripts, you got to take the GRE, depending on what program requires it. You have to keep track of observation hours. A big suggestion that I would make that I didn't do. So when I did my observation hours, I did one setting, outpatient setting. However, if you want a wider range of options in what schools, what programs then you could apply to, I would suggest mixing up the type of setting that you observe in, specifically if you can get into a hospital. That'd be very beneficial. Excuse me. I know there are several programs, even in Ohio, that require 3 different types of settings. So that's something to consider. And then one added bonus to the application process, of course, is there's a lot of fees that are associated with the application. So it is in your best interest to do a lot of research into what program you're considering, because it's going to cost you extra money to apply to, 10 different places. So it's in your best interest to kind of research which one might be the best fit for you, whether it's the organization of the clinicals that they do. It could be geographic location, whatever sticks out to you the most. Really pursue that, because you want to save as much money as possible.
Thank you. And the second half of this is, how do scholarships work in a DPT school, and is it similar to undergrad?
It is not similar to undergrad, because there are far fewer available. So in undergrad, you can do a general financial aid application, and that sets you up for graduate loans, or not graduate loans, it sets you up for federal loans, whether it be subsidized, unsubsidized, grants, and then scholarships through the university. That's all like a one-stop shop, and you have the option through, if you complete your FAFSA, to be eligible for all of those. However, with grad school, you still complete the FAFSA, but like I said, there's just fewer specific scholarships available. Institutions don't even have a lot available for their grad programs. They kind of set that aside for the undergrads. So what I've been doing personally is just been taking federal, I think it's unsubsidized. Don't quote me on it. I still don't know everything that I could about the process, but I just take those loans, and then I get paid with my graduate assistantship as well. A lot of people have part-time jobs to help pay for school, but scholarships are very few and far between in a grad program. And if you hear about them, you usually hear them through faculty, private organizations, a lot of different private PT companies that are bigger and have more financial resources. They are willing to offer up some money through some private scholarship applications. But in terms of counting on scholarships to pay for a DPT program, I wouldn't count on it.
Very good to know. We're going to jump back to Stephanie now. What are some of the certifications that you have that you recommend to other students in the exercise science pathway?
I'll tell you guys kind of one of the things that I did as a mistake coming out when I first came out. I hold over 25 different national certifications, but I thought, okay, I wanted certification, so I took it from this organization. Okay, I wanted to be able to teach step aerobics, so I took it from this organization. Yoga, so I took it from this organization. I never looked early on in my career to make sure all those continuing education credits crossed agencies or organizations. So I will tell you now, when you're out and you're looking for some of the certifications that you're going to take, bare minimum is personal training, bare minimum is a group exercise, but make sure a lot of those continuing education credits cross over or count. I'll tell you guys, I spend about $2,000 a year in continuing professional education, with not only all of my certifications, but also keeping up with the industry of different things that are going on. So I would definitely, if you want to transition into this field, I would definitely have that national certification in personal training group exercise, ACSM, ACE. AFA was big for a while. It's kind of transitioning down a little bit, but really make sure that you kind of streamline yourself with the agency or organization that you align with nationally.
Thank you so much. Back to Danielle. What made you want to start your own business?
Well, let's see. My entire family owns businesses. They work in construction, so I grew up in a family of business owners, and I actually graduated with my master's. I started interviewing. I had a graduate assistantship with Children's Hospital, and the doctors that I worked with interviewed me for the clinic there. And this is probably not going to be what some people want to hear, but I remember walking into that interview and thinking, there is no way I can do this the rest of my life. Be in an office or a clinic setting, dealing mostly with post-care. I'm kind of like Stephanie. I need to be on the side where I felt like I could help people before they had issues, not after they had issues. My father had cardiac issues. He passed away about 10 years ago. And he had them for 25 years, and I couldn't see people in that state. I felt like I had to do something. So I knew enough about business ownership, and I got done with that interview, and I told the one doctor who was in charge of my graduate assistantship that there was just no way I could do it. And I went out and I started my own business. I mean, I literally had every idea of what I wanted to do, but no idea what I wanted to do. And I just thought I'd go for it. So that's pretty much how I got into that.
That's great. Thank you. Going back to Matt for this one. What advice do you give for undergraduates to help them attend or apply to DPT schools and programs? What are some studying tips that you have?
So first one, you're asking just like advice for the application process?
Yep.
Okay. I guess overall piece of advice is it's going to get difficult, but always stay focused on your main goal. You know, if you set in your mind, like, yes, I want to be a physical therapist. In order for me to get there, I have to attend a grad program, a DPT program. I have to apply to said program. I think that's going to help guide the process a little. It's not gonna make it easier, but I think it's gonna be more focused. A lot from my peers back when I was applying to PT schools, it just seemed like everyone was very stressed about it. Naturally, I was stressed about it, but I didn't let it get in the way of my education currently that I was getting from UA. It's still very valuable information. And like I said earlier, you learn so many concepts that you can carry over to that next level that will help you in the long run and in your career once you graduate. So I think don't get overwhelmed with the whole process and the many different steps. Take some stress relievers, do what you can to try to manage it, but really like embrace the process, but still focus on why you're at Akron specifically, and help that push you forward.
And then studying tips, probably more based for Akron, but I would assume that they're pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna out Travion here. So she was messaging me privately, study tips for special pops, because I said pay attention to special pops, folks. But study tips, I would say, it kind of goes back to my point I said earlier about don't just memorize things, really internalize the concepts. So as you get farther along in your exercise science curriculum, you focus a lot more on different pathologies, and really the physiology of what's happening in the body, not just, external things that can be memorized and applied, directly in the clinic. It's more advanced knowledge, in my opinion. So study tips for it would be take a certain pathology. Let's go diabetes. Think about what's happening at a cellular level, really like the smallest level possible, and think how is that different than what is normally there, normal physiology and normal anatomy. So, it's an insulin resistance, right? So what could possibly happen if there's resistance to insulin? Then their blood glucose could be higher. Well, if their blood glucose is higher, then what kind of effects does that have? And if you have those general effects, then you can apply that to exercise based on your knowledge of the physiological changes that exercise brings on. It's what I'm trying to say is it all stems from a very small level of each basis for each pathology. And I think that's something to really keep with you as you go, and it'll help you with, complicated cases as you move forward. If you break it down to the most basic level possible, I think that could be very beneficial. It helps you make connections to other pathologies as well. Why is heart disease connected to diabetes? It's because it's all, vascular problems. It's all related. So I think in the more advanced medical based concepts, that's my advice. Yeah. Does that help?
Great answer. Real quick, Stephanie, how do you have any tips, being that I see you nodding a lot and laughing over there?
Trayvon, did you tell them I teach special pops? I'm totally recording this, Matt, so I can play you in class tomorrow. No, honestly, the biggest thing is finding out the why, like what is going on, but it's why. What is the root going on that's causing A, B, and C? Don't get overwhelmed by kind of all of the stuff that goes along with it. From other two different classifications of heart medication, of, oh my God, I've got to memorize all those things. No, you don't.
Her connection cut out.
I lost you.
Oh, okay.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
There. Can you hear me now? Back. Sorry. And know that you guys don't have to know it all. You don't, I mean, for class, yes, you do. But for in real life, guys, you don't have to have it all memorized. For class, yes, you will need to know it, but it's okay to not know it in front of somebody and say, hang on, and give me a second, I need to break real quick. Run, kind of look at everything all at once right off the bat. It doesn't work that way. You're not going to be able to remember everything that you have learned in school and be able to apply it on each just because you walked across the stage. It's really a lot of trial and error and kind of just playing with it and thinking about it rationally.
I feel like this class in exercise prescription goes hand in hand. And I didn't take exercise prescription yet, so I just feel like when exercise prescription comes, I'm going to be like, oh man.
We have one more before we go into the open Q&A session. This one's for Matt.
Can I add to my answer too?
It's easier than special pops. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
My general advice to students that are thinking of applying to PT school, don't write off the exercise science classes, because everything that I learned in exercise prescription, exercise physiology has directly related to the classes that I'm taking. Our clinical based class is called clinical decision making, and there's 4 different levels to it. Well, in the first level, we spent about half a semester talking about acute care, which a lot of it has to do with cardiopulmonary concepts, as well as different exercise tests. And I was very grateful for the knowledge base that I already had moving forward. So I know it may seem like you just want to focus on the anatomy concepts, and some gross stuff, gross anatomy, and bigger structural things with the body, but it is very beneficial to focus on specific pathologies related to exercise.
Thank you to both of you. That was both great answers. And last one here before we move on to open Q&A is from Matt. Can you explain a little more about what you do working as a physical therapy aide during undergrad?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. So during my observation hours, I was on for about 3 months during the summer. And then I guess they liked me well enough that they offered me just an aide's job, a tech job in the clinic. It was an outpatient clinic. So what I learned during my time there was, one, I chose the right profession, because up to that point, I hadn't seen a lot of physical therapy within the exercise science curriculum, but seeing that real experience like out in the clinic, it kind of solidified for me, like, yes, this is what I want to do. I see the kind of impact that it has on people, you know. The clinic that I worked at too, they worked with specifically patients with vestibular disorders, and the kind of help that they, you know, did with these patients, it was amazing. You know, people experiencing vertigo symptoms and headaches just at all times, and then having these therapy sessions and then just feeling better, you know, tears of joy like during their treatment sessions. So it was very impactful for me. Trying to think of something more practical. Just I spent a year as well, I guess 9 months as a tech, a year within that clinic. But I think just learning how a clinic like that runs was very beneficial. I became very, very familiar with the outpatient environment, at least. It's very interactive, a lot of different things going on. So it was an open gym concept. There were individual treatment rooms, but that was kind of reserved for kind of evaluations and then manual therapy. But in terms of the exercises, everybody was kind of out on this open floor. So just learning how to navigate that and be comfortable in that environment, I thought was very beneficial. Yeah, if anybody has anything else specifically that they'd like to hear about, I'm sure I could jog my memory a little bit, but it's been a year or so.
That's perfect. So now we're going to go into the open Q&A. So now anybody who's in the meeting can ask whatever they want. Just go ahead and start talking.
I had a question for Danielle. How did you end up creating 2 new businesses while already running one right out of college?
Well, one, whenever I started the first one out of college, it was fitness, it was personal training. We dealt more with athletes and general fitness. It kind of grew. One of my trainers, I actually have 2 children, and I was pregnant with my second child at the time, and I needed to scale down my business. So I started a second business, which I know doesn't make any sense at the time, but I started a second one that I could scale down, and I sold my first one that was larger to one of my trainers. And then had my daughter, grew my second business. Now I have another business that's actually a property holding company, because 3 years ago I built the building that we're currently in and moved my facility into that building instead of renting. And so the third business doesn't actually have anything to do with fitness per se. It's just a holding company so that my business is separated out from the building itself, the building and the land, which is financially a better decision whenever you have both, whenever you own the building and have the business. So yeah, I know it doesn't really make any sense, but it just worked.
Thank you.
My message is for Danielle. How did you study to obtain your CSCS? Like, how long did you study? What in particular did you study? I know probably over a period of time, but just in general.
Well, I actually I had I'm also an ATC, so after college I took that certification, passed that, and then I studied I was fresh out of college, so everything was still fresh in my brain, so to speak. So I studied about another month and then went and took my Cscs. I studied the materials that they were, recommended. I forget the name of the book now. It's been so long, but that's pretty much the direct path that I went straight from college, had the master's, took my ATC certification, which gave me a lot of information, went on to take my CSCS. So I'm also, whenever it comes to taking tests, I was always good at that. So it was, I don't get nervous with test taking. So I think that was a benefit to me also.
Was it the Essentials of Strength Training?
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
It was. If you know that information and you can look at some of the bigger major lifts from a biomechanical standpoint, you will be fine. It's a challenging exam, but it isn't out of anybody's reach that has an exercise science background.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I had a question about grad school. You said you graduated in 2019 and you already had a semester before COVID hit. So do you think that your education now has been kind of compromised because of COVID?
What an excellent question. My education has not been compromised, but my educational experience has been changed. So in terms of the material, it's essentially the same. They haven't really changed the curriculum. I mean, they did in the spring semester. They kind of shifted some things around. But currently, where we're at, I'd say we're about half virtual, half in person. So that in-person time is for like the valuable hands-on lab activities. Obviously, with physical therapy, like telehealth, that's a whole nother conversation. But for us as students, we need that base knowledge of real human to human interaction, some hands-on human touch as well. That's essential to our profession, honestly. So it's important that we get that time to learn that now. The other half with the virtual, it's more like organizational curriculum. Our pediatrics is, you can't be bringing, just it's hard to get children to come in and then work with that population on campus. A lot of different levels to work with and complexities to hoops to jump through, I should say. So it makes sense that would be mostly online, but it's definitely been a difficult time. I'll be honest. You think about what your college experience is going to be, and you think about what your graduate professional program is going to be like. And if I had to tell you, a year ago that I would be, even sitting on this virtual meeting, I would tell you no. But you got to stay focused on the end goal. And I think when we finally work with real patients, I don't think we're going to be longing for any experience that we didn't get during this time during COVID. I think our knowledge is still there, and we will eventually get that opportunity to apply it. So difficult in the moment, but in terms of compromising what we're learning and what kind of clinicians we'll be in the future, I think we're still set up for success, definitely.
Thank you. That honestly makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, stay positive, everyone. I know it's difficult, but really rely on your support system. But y'all have what it takes inside you. I believe in you. We can get through it together.
Steph, do you have any type of advice for the rest of the semester?
And like with Matt, I will tell you, the learning virtually, especially kind of your senior year, coming out to graduate December, graduate is May. A lot of this stuff, you guys would be doing a lot of hands-on stuff. Things would be really different. I would say don't lose focus on the end game. It's really easy, kind of that last semester, that last, 2 semesters coming up of I'm almost done. So let me just get through this. This is kind of the most important foundation of you to build on, whether you're going into grad school or whether you're going into the workforce. So I don't want to say don't get lazy, but don't get lazy. Really dive in, dig in hard. I know it is exhausting. I know it is overwhelming, and I know it is hard, but you're almost to the end of your new beginning. All right. So dig in as much as you possibly can and finish as strong as you possibly can. It's okay to have off days. It's okay to have bad days, but kind of continually pull through it. Take advantage of every opportunity that is thrown at you. They're very different now. They might be virtual opportunities of watching a lecture or doing something like this. Your resume building looks differently right now in COVID. A lot of places aren't letting you in to do hands-on experience. A lot of places aren't letting you shadow just because of a liability aspect of it with everything going on. So as much professional development, continuing development that you can do virtually, do it. I hate to say online is kind of a gift right now. There are different fitness organizations and things that are allowing professionals to do discounted or for free or online that normally you would have to go and do in person. So as much of that stuff as you can kind of build from now, this next semester or semester after that, or in between going into grad school, take advantage of it. Kind of seek some of that stuff out. I know it's exhausting, but keep pushing through. Just keep going and ask for help. We're here to help you guys. We're here. We're tap dancing everything the best that we can to make it realistic and as real as possible without being hands-on. Ask if you need help or need something, just yell. We're here to help you. And have fun. My God, have fun. Have fun.
I have a quick question for Matt. What other schools did you apply to besides Youngstown, and what made you pick Youngstown over those other schools?
That's a good question. So I applied to Toledo, Mount Union, Cleveland State, and then YSU in Ohio. And then I also applied to Marshall, West Virginia, Wheeling Jesuit in West Virginia. So there were some that I got rejected, some I got interviews, and then some I got accepted. So to me, it sounded like a generally typical response when I, ask my current peers, how their application process went. But the reason I chose Youngstown State was kind of more personal reasons. I have some family that lives in Northeast Ohio, and I didn't really want to leave the state because the rest of my family pretty much lives in Ohio. West Virginia, I was just kind of throwing it out there just because I entertained the option of leaving the state, but really my family brought me back. So I know a lot of people decide to get up and move to the West Coast, and this is their chance to go out and pursue different things, and that's awesome. But for me, I kind of wanted to stay together with my family. And then a couple other points about choosing YSU. So it's one of the most affordable DPT programs in the country, and it was a big deciding factor for me because you go to these different programs and you visit them and you go through the interview process, and I'll be honest, a lot of them are very similar, and the curriculum that's going to be taught and the type of clinical experiences that you're going to have are going to be very similar, just based on, the level of PT opportunities throughout the country. So PT is a growing profession following anywhere where there's a population growth. It's a very people-centered profession, just as is personal training, exercise physiology. It all has to do with people. So really, I couldn't say that there's one specific hotspot for PT in the country. It's just anywhere where there's growth of people. So bringing it back to my point, you're going to get similar education wherever you go, but student debt is a real thing, and it becomes more real the closer I get to graduating. So it's just something that I considered, you know, I want to graduate and I want to have a rewarding career right at the start, but part of having a rewarding career is not being distracted by the burden of the finances from, you know, thousands of dollars in student loans. So that was a big factor for me. And then the last deciding factor was our facilities were recently renovated. Actually, while my first semester during the summer, they went through the process of renovating all our facilities. We have brand new outpatient labs, inpatient labs, classrooms, the whole 9 yards. It looks amazing. So if anyone is interested, you should come for a visit. I'll take you through it.
Thank you.
I kind of have a question for everyone. I was just curious on what certification you have found to be most useful for your path. So I don't know if like Danielle wants to start, and then Stephanie, and then Matt.
I don't remember who said it, maybe Stephanie, that it kind of depends on your population. The two that I look for most with my trainers is anything from the NSCA or anything from the ACSM, just because it's most applicable to what we do. After that, there's lots of different, well, I shouldn't say lots, but there's the 10 nationally accredited organizations that I look for after that. So NSCA, CSCS, CPT, TASC, any of the ACSM ones are the ones that I usually recommend first.
I'm always a huge believer in, or kind of the one that's impacted me the most, my group exercise kind of certifications. It not only really taught me how to work kind of one-on-one with somebody, but also how to mold a group dynamic to get the lead personalities and mix different things together to motivate them for a common goal. So that was something, whether I'd have 2 patients or whether it was 35 people in a gym, kind of how do I build that group dynamic? And that was one of the certifications that I kind of rely a lot on to build some of that to help navigate a lot of people.
Yeah, so I would agree with both of you. I would say group exercise certification while you're in PT school is beneficial because it gives you the opportunity to potentially work even at the rec center. There's a couple of my peers that are employed at the rec center teaching exercise classes, but then there's a few of my peers that have CSCS. What I can say though is, in my opinion, the ATCs in my class, there's 3 of them. I think that they have the most extensive knowledge on orthopedics and injury and healing than anyone. I know, I don't know if there are any athletic trainers. I know Danielle, you said you had your ATC, but in terms of students on this call, I'm not sure if anybody has that, but just from what I've seen, very beneficial transitioning from athletic training into physical therapy.
That's definitely what made it easier, I think, for me to go into the medical fitness route, because of that background, along with then just my ability to converse with doctors, physical therapists, and to have that relationship already. Either I did have it or I was able to build it because they knew what my background was. You know, it's that I was back in the era though when you could get that as a bachelor's and it was more of a common degree. I know it's not there like it is or was back then, so I'm not sure really what kind of requirements they even need to get that, but from an orthopedic standpoint, that definitely was the most beneficial aspect that I have.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Last call.
I have a question for Steph. So when COVID first happened and the TRX thing I found it. I cannot find it. But are there any more like that you've seen? Like, just like little free classes that are rare or in general?
Yeah, so when COVID first hit, there were 40 different fitness organizations that put a lot of their certifications that were typically in person, online, and offered a lot. Like TRX offered a free basic certification training. You took it online. It was typically like a $289 certification. They did a lot of things of professional courtesy. I have honestly, I've been slacking. I haven't looked in the past couple months here, guys, but I can go back. I can kind of look and see if there's anything. Kind of the 40 cohort, I can look and post and see if there's anything else out there. It's kind of shifted now that we're starting to open things back up a little bit. But I can take a look and see if there's anything out there, and I can post it for you guys to take a look at.
I know
Thank
that
you.
Perform Better had their summer series, and all of that was continuing ed. Now it's over, but they're going to post them. I think they're posted now to still take. I don't think you can take them for continuing ed anymore, but I think you could still go back for the educational component of them all.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them are still doing it. Like Peloton did 3 months free of their app or different things like that. Now I think it's 30 days free that you can try and look at all their different stuff. But I can look. I can do some research for you and take a look.
Last call, part 2 for questions. Seeing none, we're going to move into the final remarks section. So we'll go from Danielle to Stephanie to Matt again. We would love if you guys could give us just any final tips or something that you want to leave us with. It could be your most important lesson or anything of the sort. So we'll go Danielle, Stephanie, and then Matt.
Okay, it's a little cliche, but if you can figure out what you are most passionate about and follow that path, it will never seem like a job. I mean, you roughly heard the story of, whenever I first graduated and started my business, and it was really scary and it was really, really hard, probably like Matt going into DPT. It was probably really scary, really hard, and there were a lot of kids that probably said, I'm not doing it. A lot of people wouldn't have started a business at 22 years old where they really didn't know what they were getting themselves into, but it was something that I loved and I knew that I could do it very well. So if you always are kind of going in that direction, you'll be fine. You'll learn, it'll be engaging, it'll be challenging, but it will be so much more worth it than if you just feel like you need to follow the path that somebody else kind of says, a counselor, a professor, your parents, whoever it is, or then you're not going to find that joy in it. So if I could give you any advice, it's to keep going into the direction that you want, that you know is best for you.
I will say kind of one of the things, this degree or this industry, you guys, has so much potential and so much opportunity. Both of my degrees here have led me to campus rec, medical fitness, teaching, working with special population from cancer wellness to all kinds of realms. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be PT, OT, personal train, any of that. This field is so broad that there is so much that you can do with it. So as you start in one direction, you can change directions at any point in this industry and still be relevant and still be viable and still be successful. That is something that I've learned along the way, kind of the hard way of doing jobs that maybe I probably didn't love, but I did because I thought there was nothing else. But I've really kind of discovered there's tens of millions of different things in this industry that you can do, and you can create your own path in this industry. You don't really have to follow anybody else. The other thing that I will tell you, don't be afraid to say no. Coming out as a new graduate, you are kind of the, yes, I'll work more hours. Yes, I'll pick up that shift. Yes, I'll take that hardest patient. You learn some of the best things by saying yes all of the time. But in this industry, we are an industry that cares for others. And sometimes by saying yes all of the time, it sucks the life out of us. So just kind of don't be afraid. No is an okay answer. You don't have to justify it. That is something I really wish I would have learned early on in my career in some of my different professions. There was one point, guys, where I was teaching 22 group exercise classes a week. What human being needs to exercise for 22 hours a week? But you know what? It paid for college. So, you know, some of those things I wish I would have said no a little bit more. It led me to all kinds of different opportunities, but it's okay to say no and feel confident in that you can say no. So, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions all the time.
Yeah, kind of speaking to that last point, I guess the main thing that I would say is speaking towards an educational program, don't be passive, be active in your education. I'm assuming everyone on this call is kind of at a point where you have career goals and you have an idea of what you want to do. Now is the time to let those goals kind of drive you into learning as much as you possibly can about whatever path you're choosing. You know, I think the time to put the responsibility on instructors and professors to teach us, present us with the information that we need. No, I think it's very important. Preparing for a professional career in this field, in physical therapy too, I think it's important to be active and seek the knowledge that you need to be good clinicians in the future.
Okay, guys, so I have a quick question. I know we already got into this, but can you guys give me advice on insurance? Which ones are the best ones? I know Stephanie, we talk about this with you a lot of times, but just need a quick refresher.
Did you say insurance?
Yes,
Like liability insurance as a
yes,
trainer?
yeah, like so when you're training someone,
Right,
just like the best insurances and
I would go through your
prices.
certifying organization. Are you certified right now?
Yes,
Okay, who's your certifying organization?
ACE.
Okay, they have insurance. It'll cost you about $100 a year. If you're a member, it'll be about 100. If not, you'll need to be a member too, which I'm not sure. It's usually about 100, 129 for a year, give or take. I would go through that. They're going to give you the best rate. It's going to be a group rate, and you're not going to be able to beat it.
Same. I would go through your certifying agency. That's usually the cheapest that's out there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if nobody has any other questions, last call for that. Any final remarks? Awesome. Okay, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate the time that you've carved out for us, as well as the students who were able to tune in and send in their questions. We will be posting a recording on a virtual platform. We're going to try and use YouTube, but just, again, thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, you guys can email us. But I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.